Welcome to Season 2 of the Workforce Situation Room, where we spotlight some of the promising and innovative solutions that address some of our most pressing workforce and economic challenges. Our mission at Workforce Solutions Borderplex is to power businesses to prosperity by empowering people with tools and opportunities to reach their potential in the workforce. I'm Bianca, your host, and I stand alongside our ladies of leadership at Workforce Solutions Borderplex with Leila Melendez, our CEO, Alma Aranda, Workforce Development Director, and Karina Castillo, our Senior Research Analyst. In this room, we all believe every situation has a solution. For today's episode, here's the situation.
We delve into financial literacy this month as we begin to adjust to somewhat of a recovery that may actually be, sorry to say, short-lived.
All right, so we're back in the Situation Room. Today we have Alma, Karina, and we kidnapped one of our board members, Bobby Blanco from Strategic Wealth Advisors. I'm glad you have the logo on your shirt, Bobby.
You're welcome.
Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So Bobby is here to talk to us a little bit about financial literacy. That's our topic today. And Bobby has all the expertise. He works in all different areas of financial management. And we have some juicy stuff, some juicy statistics. So what I wanted to start off with is first, before we even start talking about financial education and literacy, we have to have finances. We have to possess finances. And one of the first things I want to do is break that notion, that consensus that El Paso's got a low cost of living, and that's why we live here. And yes, we definitely have low rates, rental rates, less expensive properties, but we're not the lowest place in El Paso to live, and it's not attributed to just wages. There's a constant comparison that we are the place to be. But I wanted to bring the comparison of San Antonio, the economy in San Antonio. It's some of the data that Karina and Alma have presented in terms of San Antonio actually has a lower cost of living. And I think that's really important because if San Antonio can have a lower cost of living, you have a higher economy over there. You have way higher wages. So Karina has a little bit more of that data. Can you give us elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yes, thank you. We did an analysis and the most recent data indicates that yes, we have almost the same cost of living as San Antonio. And we were looking the wages between El Paso and San Antonio. And then the difference in cost of living is almost 3%. But the difference in wages is 29%. So you see the difference. Okay, I'm going to move to San Antonio. It's 3%, but the net benefit will be 26%.
Right, more money in your pocket.
More money in your pocket.
But you know what? It's really important, though. I want to make sure that we differentiate. So regardless of the wages that you're taking home and earning, financial literacy is still something for everybody. Even if you are making low wages. I mean, it's so harder, yes. But the notion of having that conversation, knowing what to look for, and especially when we have families that are lower income because of the predatory lending practices and things like that. So yes, absolutely, earning more wages gives you better ability to get into investments, but that's not to exclude people who don't make good wages, right? So I think it's important to kind of go there as well.
Thank you for that. And definitely, I just want to clarify that it shouldn't be something that people get comfortable with, and that's just the livelihood that we keep because it's a low cost of living and we're getting by.
There's a lot of myths to dispel
when
it comes to cost of living and wages and comparisons and things like that. But and certainly that can influence, someone's ability to really get into the realm of investment and savings, but it's not exclusive for sure, and I think that there's a lot of cultural biases and myths along with that. So great that we have Bobby here to kind of help us dispel those myths and let everybody know what they can do.
Exactly.
I will say also that it also depends a lot on industry. San Antonio's enjoyed a lot of higher tech and business investment. Companies relocating home offices there. You've got publicly traded companies that are there. So they've attracted a lot more than what El Paso currently has. In fact, even in El Paso, we've actually lost certain industries. And so if you really look at, in my perspective, the differentiation in wage cost is oftentimes because we don't have those types of companies that you'd see in San Antonio that here. The Toyota plant that opened up there years ago, that was scaled to open up in El Paso. But since it didn't happen here, they went to San Antonio. And
that's a great point, because some of those industries in-house, those big employers, provide retirement plans.
Exactly.
And when you're looking at the scale of how many, if we know that 96% of our employer base are micro small employers, how much of those like benefits are they really offering? And so where do people get that, and where can they learn about it? Because it's not going to be through the traditional sense of, it's coming through your employer.
Typically, most people learn about putting monies away or budgeting, and from them having those monies taken from their paychecks, for the most part. And that's where the 401k scenarios come from. But learning how to put monies away on their own typically come from working with somebody. So I'll tell you that most people with an employer standpoint can talk to their financial advisor who's handling their 401k, and that person can be a huge resource in just giving them basic financial literacy of how to budget, how to put monies away, even outside of the 401k. So that's, if you have a company here and they don't offer those types of benefits, that employee may not ever, or too late, get that type of advice to be able to advance themselves to have something for the end.
And what if you are working with an employer that doesn't have those benefits, like which we suspect a lot of our small base employers might not be able to offer that?
So I've told clients of ours that have employers that don't offer anything to ask them, would you consider offering a retirement plan? Just simply put, ask.
Call them out.
Because they could say yes or no. Sometimes I've had employers come to me and say, hey, I think we want to open up a 401k or a simple IRA or something so that they have the ability to do that.
That's really, it sounds simple, but really, really key, because just as we're talking about financial literacy for individuals, how many of our businesses don't know that they could actually offer something like that? So I think, when we start getting into the world of what we're doing with employers and our consultation, it's going to be really important to be able to have those conversations. As employers are looking to bring in workers and we know that they're struggling to, these are some of the benefits in addition to just the direct wages. So that's a really great education point.
Yeah, I think it helps to ask. Isn't that the old adage? Just ask.
Right.
You never know. You have a 50-50 chance of them saying yes or no.
Maybe 90-10.
Something like that.
And for individuals?
On an individual base, there's a lot of things you can do. Simply put, just an IRA. And now you have Roth IRAs and two different ways to save. But nonetheless, you can save $6,000 a year, into something like that. And if you're over 50, you can do an additional $1,000. So $7,000 a year total. So if you're not even at least doing that, then it lies on you as the individual that you're not putting monies away.
So I'm going to share my perspective and some experience. I remember we had, my husband and I had this amount of savings, right? And we're saving for our eldest daughter for college. And thank goodness she got a pretty good scholarship. And so we had some savings there. And I remember somebody reaching out to us, a family member who worked in finance, that are like, they didn't know, but they were just kind of trying to grow their business. But I remember in my mind, I was like, I don't have enough money to actually work with a financial advisor. I don't have that kind of money. And we really didn't do anything with it. Eventually to be quite honest, we utilized it on things that we needed. But I think that's part of and I don't know, Bobby, if you can give us some perspective, how do we break that cycle and that culture of I think it's important to get to the point, especially with all the technology and different platforms now, is everybody can have access, even if it's just little slivers, but what do you face that a lot? How do we bridge that?
Well, I've been introduced to people with, all types of income ranges. Okay. And, the key.
Can you give us numbers?
Yeah. So, I've worked with people with income levels as around the 30,000 a year,
Wow.
to where clients that are making, 10 million and up type scenario. So that's kind of the range that we have.
Okay.
And oftentimes really, if as an advisor, you're here to aim to help people. That's your goal. That's the objective. We're held to fiduciary standards as it is. But the key is we're also business owners, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a matter of finding the right advisor to be able to help you to hit your needs and your goals and objectives. I mean, that's the key. And so some advisors may not want to work with a certain income level. Well, then they're not the right advisor for you.
Right.
Find one that is.
That does. But don't be discouraged.
Don't, exactly. Find one that is willing to help, give you advice, and then the key there is advice that's unbiased. They're not trying to sell you something or going to, as a conflict of interest, put you in something that's going to benefit them. They can't come first. You, the client, has to come first. And so it's a matter of understanding what they're trying to help you with. If they're steering you in a certain way, it's because it's trying to help them. And we live in a world of
that's unfortunate too.
Unbiased advice.
You talk about the predatory stuff. Go ahead.
I completely agree because let me tell you what happened to me. I didn't have that financial literacy in regards to the college savings for my daughter. And it's like I needed to pay because we sold a property, and I needed to pay to the IRS. I didn't want to pay to the IRS $30,000, and I asked a financial advisor what I can do. I didn't know. I don't want to pay. Why don't you do a college savings? And then that helped me, and then reduced. I didn't give it to the IRS. I save it for my daughters. But this can help medium, like in my help medium people that is earning like any income will help. And that's why you need a financial advisor in any way. Mm-hmm. Like maybe through Workforce Solutions, we can help you.
Absolutely, because I think, and this is something that I wanted to, I'm taking over the question.
That's okay. Sorry. No, I'm proud of you.
When Karina and I were discussing last night, and we're looking at some data points, we do that sometimes.
Yes, sometimes.
Okay, truth be told, we do that often. But I was telling her that only 12 states in the entire U.S. require any kind of finance economics class. Texas is not one of them.
In terms of higher education or?
High school, at high school. So in the same report, I think it was, I can't remember exactly, 67% of Americans do not have financial literacy acumen. So then where does somebody learn this? And have you seen that get better, get worse from your perspective? Because now I'm like, who's going to do it? And at the end of the day, it seems like it might not be within our direct wheelhouse, but it is because
absolutely
it impacts economic development in the region, right?
No, I've seen it at all levels. I mean, I've seen clients from straight out of high school to clients who are retiring, and all similar types of situations where they just don't know. And almost a full dependency of saying, I need help and I don't know what to do. So here, I trust you, you take care of it. And that's a huge burden on the advisor to be able to say, wait a minute, I can't just do this without teaching you and advising you and you having to know what's going on. So we spend a lot of time, and I would hope that a lot of advisors do that, to where they spend time to educate their clients on what they're doing, not just take a blank check and say, I'll just do whatever he's going to, or she's going to do whatever they want. I know they're going to take care of me. No, as a client, you should be inquiring, okay, how are you doing that? And why are you doing that? And how does that benefit? I want to learn. Mm-hmm. And that financial literacy starts really even at any age. It's never too late. Start now. Ask the questions now. Get involved. Create a business relationship with an advisor, and just start getting involved to learn. And it's amazing what happens is when you're empowered with information of where you could land and do in the future. So if someone's just getting out of high school, where they could position themselves in 10, 20, 30 years. Mm-hmm. Even with a client, let's say, just about to retire, but did the right thing and put some money away, what they can do, not only for themselves during retirement, but even like a wealth transfer when they pass away, how they pass it on to their kids and their grandkids and so on and so forth. So
where does the inspiration to become financially literate come from? As we talk about how you mentioned, Karina, or you in some of your notes, is a lot of students drop out. Yes. And they don't, from outside financial pressures, and they don't really even, not only if they miss it in high school or it's even offered in high school, they skip that and they have nothing once they get out of high school or drop out of high school and start working a regular, maybe minimum wage job. Where or how do we even grasp these individuals? How do we even begin to inspire them to look for somebody like you, Bobby, or even where do they start? And what will they learn?
Well, I mean, if let's say start with high school. I think it starts with having exposure to that financial literacy, as a sophomore, junior, senior, to at least know their parents, that they need to be really, number one, that they're responsible to teach their kids as to where money goes. College, even let's say someone doesn't study finance, there should still be some core in their basics in finance, and it should be early so that they can start managing those assets properly as they start to build and save. But I would also say that from there, or even at that point, create a relationship with a financial advisor. Bar none, right there is where you start.
So all roads lead to actually the advisor is going to be the key. And I know it's really important to focus on the youth, especially, when we're talking about our future and the future workforce and all of that. But I'm still astonished at some of the data and stats that we were looking at. How many adults don't have that? So then who's having that conversation?
Yes, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Where are the gaps?
Right. So I'm going to put myself as an example as well. First generation American. My dad, definitely extreme work ethic. I would say workaholic, right? I get it from somewhere. But
yes, I know where you get it, Alma.
Just a little bit. But I remember him kind of even telling us, very early on, it doesn't matter what you make, you save. If you make $10, save $1. And I was like, yeah, okay, sure. And I would listen to him. But he built up a pretty good net. And I didn't even know this. He had a financial advisor. I mean, so I think there's also differences. I remember my brother really early on, we would get our allowance, our domingo, and
right.
He would save it. And I'd be like, can't wait to go to the whatever, you know what I mean? No matter what, I would spend every single, down to the penny. So there's some differences there. And I think some people, but in looking back and reflecting on how well, we get into this, I don't think my parents really ever shared with me some of the struggles that they were going through. I don't remember. And that's not to say that we were well off. My dad had a very good job. I mean, I don't think I wanted for anything, but I'm sure that, but we were not by any means any kind of wealthy family, very, very middle class. But we just didn't have those conversations. I think in some cultures, and this is, obviously my own experience, it's not we share that. So even sometimes the struggles, I think it's important to share with the kids. Not put the burden on them. You don't want them stressing out, but
yeah, definitely
but there's
sensitive.
definitely, because I think sometimes there's a perception that it's easy, it's innate, it comes to us.
True.
And then you fall into things Karina and I were talking, and this is going to age me a little bit, but when you think of some of the low income families and the things that they're exposed to, and if they're living paycheck to paycheck, and then you've got those predatory loans. I was telling Karina, I'm like, remember there was this influx of commercials, and I couldn't remember, and it dawned on me, it was called the Tío Dinero.
Tío, 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 tío dinero. Oh my God, was that a predator?
Yes, it absolutely, right? It was.
Yeah, it was.
And the way they used that to sell.
And the young people
You
for
took
free.
me back right now.
Right, but did they not use that to get you comfortable and now you've got a
it's your
deal
deal.
With an interest of 30%.
You just blew my mind.
for a $200 loan. You know what I mean? You're going to pay it back. You're going to pay back $1,000.
You blew my mind.
How do we break that cycle? So I go with the questions again. What can we do? What are some early low-hanging fruit that we can
Or at
kind
least
of...
finding, okay, so yeah, let's talk about predatory. How do we break that cycle? Yeah.
And don't go to Tío Dinero.
Or JJ. Just joking. I feel like they're related. No, JJ, the king of beepers.
Oh,
I'm not talking about your friend, JJ. Sorry. That was the same time that the commercial came out.
Okay.
I'm trying to be funny and it didn't work.
If you can't find it at home with your parents, right, or even extended family, aunts and uncles or something like that, to get good advice, then I think
real deal.
A real deal. I think that you basically then just seek the advice of a professional. Let's say, I'll give you an example. So we manage a lot of 401k and retirement plans for companies. And so oftentimes there are a lot of employees that are making, 20 to 40 to 50,000 a year, and they're living sometimes check to check, and sometimes a little difficult, but they'll ask me and say, hey, well, what can I do? I don't have anyone else to ask. The closest advisor they might have really is just family, or if they're whoever does their taxes, like say H&R Block or something like that, but they're not able to give financial advice. They can give tax advice, so situations like that. But the key really then is, who do you talk to? So being able to find an advisor who has the ability to give proper advice, who's licensed, where they can know your situation and be able to counsel you properly. I mean, that's just the thing. So that's what I would say. Seek somebody.
And I guess first step would be start by don't be unbanked, right? Maybe.
Exactly.
First step, right?
Definitely. Well, so I kind of want to talk about, we need to think about how some people don't even know to seek you, though. Like, definitely, if there's people like, if there may be some people that like, man, what can I do with my finance? Might already have that question. But what about those that don't even realize? Like, I'm talking like maybe my mom. Like my mom didn't even like, and I got this idea because like you're talking paycheck to paycheck, and for many people that's just a norm. That's just how you live, and it isn't until it's too late or until maybe they can't get out of bed because whatever physical ailment is preventing them, they realize, what am I going to do if I can't work? Then that's when they're thinking about it. So I'm really concerned about that group of individual, and that's like lower hanging. That's fruit on the ground, right? Like, how do we find them? How do we even educate them? How do we let them know that you exist? That's something that you need to do as importantly
and
as health insurance.
Right? They deserve to have that conversation.
You hear financial advisor, and up until recently, for me, like, that's not like, and this, I'm talking about like in college, like I'm not even thinking about that. I'm here racking up debt and paying rent, and not even thinking financial advising is like it should be a millionaire mentality, and I was not there.
It should be
a basic service. So Bobby, that's like an untapped market. I mean, I'm sure that there are, especially since you say your range of clientele is 30,000, that's a market that you need to adjust
to 10 million,
the outreach for. I mean, 10 million, that's like the 1%. That's when you're on the yacht
party. We have like a young professionals division at Strategic Wealth and aim to take care of clients within that category.
Okay.
So, but a lot of financial advisors
solution.
Do that too.
We need a dinger for when you have solutions. A buzzer and a dinger.
Again, it's just I don't mean to sound like a repetitive thing, but it's you just have to ask. The key is ask who, and to ask somebody, ask anybody. Who do you have a financial advisor?
Do they know to ask?
Well, that's what I'm saying is that's the key. Shouldn't that be always the king? Whenever you don't know something, you should ask. The question is who.
Get people comfortable to ask.
You start with people that you trust.
You get Chuck DeBroder and Candlelight and Iris on Facebook Live talking about financial advice.
I think we need to blow this up, but really good opportunity because maybe what we do is we get youth that are studying these careers and kind of really try to get them out into the community to have at least these conversations on community efforts and kind of really, I feel like I keep saying blow it up, like that's been the word of the week, but really, and kind of put it out there so that it doesn't become something so unattainable, beyond, to your point, Bianca, where it's not even a thought because you don't think that you're worthy of it.
No, it's. I think the key really is just asking. And again, I said it again, but it's amazing what you can find out when you get an answer.
And I will prefer, and I understand there is two people, the young people and the people that is almost retiring. Mm-hmm. But if you start at the early age, it will be you're going to prevent those issues.
Right.
This is what we need to think is how at that level in high school, for my daughters, okay, we need as a team here, talk to the educational institution. Why don't we add this subject to your curriculum in order for them to learn budgeting, investment, retirement, all of that?
Especially now with the technology of gaming. I mean, there's so many things like,
oh my God.
That's a way to kind of squeeze it in, and make it kind of cool to learn versus your old school, let me talk, a book about economics. I mean, that's not going to be for everybody, right? But at the we just have to kind of lean in and find a way to outreach and connect with the youth. Because to your point, the things that we could prevent by giving them some financial literacy and acumen. I mean, you've got some great stats here. How many of them will fall into, not being able to sustain themselves through college, post-secondary, or, and the impact of that, all those, the trickle down effect of not having that early on is huge.
Let me just add a little bit in that recently, over the past several years, you've had the introduction of brokerage firms like Robinhood and these
Webull, Robinhood,
right,
Acorns,
where you can go
Stash.
in and start saving, but you can start
you.
investing in the market. And a lot of times the youth will look at that and say, oh, that's my advisor, that's my plan. And when the markets are good and you're making double-digit returns.
When GameStop blows up.
Right. So then all of a sudden you think, oh, I don't need anybody.
Yeah.
I've got this. I'm always going to be making.
I'm a new trader.
Absolute loser in that.
So that's kind of what's going on right now, is that a lot of the youth have never experienced a recession. They've never experienced a massive downturn in the market. And one day, soon enough, I can't say when that is because I don't know, but I can tell you that the markets will cycle. And when that market cycles, it's going to come. They're going to find themselves opening up their statements and they're going to be very shocked. And then they're going to say, what happened? Why wasn't there someone to tell me? Well, these brokerage houses can't advise them. They're just a platform by which to invest. So again, there's no one there to help them make good decisions unless you had an advisor who's licensed that can give that to you. So maybe
the hook is the platform, but we couple it with an advisor.
Yes.
With the real Tío Dinero, not Robinhood, but that's what it is. So that's the new Tío Dinero though. And it's in the form of a platform. If you think about it, they're throwing in thousands, hoping for these ridiculous returns because you see those things go viral.
On it, right?
That's a TikTok viral. Like, do you know how many financial advisors I've seen on TikTok when I go into the algorithm, when I go into the deep dark hole and I just happen to like a crypto queen that like made $326,000 on an NFT. I'm like, ooh, how did she do that? And then I go and lose $700 on an NFT, right? But those are the predators at this point.
That's all marketing.
It is.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. You're right. It is the new one because back in the day, that the only, I mean, that was like, hey, trust your Theo. He's here for you. All of that stuff, right? Same thing. Like,
Theo,
this
are
is
you
cool.
licensed? That's all I want to know.
That's the question to
Hey,
ask.
crypto queen, are you licensed?
Absolutely. No, I mean, but
Are you a fiduciary, Theo? That's what I want to know.
absolutely. Okay. So let me just kind of ask for those youth or adults, anybody, right, can get in. And if they really do want to learn more about it, and maybe even as a career, absolutely. You know, what
I love that idea. I know where you're going.
What advice do you have for that?
Well, I mean, in the financial industry, financial services, I mean, there's opportunities everywhere, you know. So if one wanted to be an advisor to work with people, because there's two sides, there's working with the public and then there's working kind of behind the scenes as an analyst. And within the whole financial services industry, there's plenty of opportunity there, plenty. And so it's just a matter of learning what's available. And the key, though, is where do you fit? Like in my case, I love working with people. I love this. I'm not a fan crunching numbers in the back, even though I know how to do it. And I can do both. But I prefer being in front of people. I prefer being with you to help motivate you and to teach you.
That's awesome.
Whereas someone in the back who doesn't have the skills or is afraid of talking, public speaking, they're better off crunching numbers in the back. And there's a need for that. So there's all sorts of...
A lot of purpose in this field.
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely. So you shouldn't scare you. You know, there's a lot of opportunity.
What's your idea of a holistic, ideally, what is the holistic, financially literate person have under their belt? What do they need to learn? Because I think we might blow some minds, including mine. How I keep saying that too now. Thank you.
That's the thing, right?
But what are the elements? What do we need to know? What should we know?
Of someone who has their stuff together?
Yeah.
Okay.
Have it together, any age.
Well, it's interesting. So you don't have to have a lot of accounts. Some would think that they have assets in 50 different things. That's not always the case. Sometimes the most successful investors or people who've put monies away is really just making sure that you have emergency funds. So if something happens, you have enough money in a very liquid place where you can access to take care of any emergency. You know, from a medical deductible to you lost your job and you have to cover your expenses for 3 or 6 months, things like that, or any expense that you all of a sudden have to come out of pocket for, you've got it. So that's number one. Second, that you have all of your insurance needs in place, you know, like health insurance, disability, auto, home, life insurance. I mean, that you are covered in a catastrophe, because a lot of people find themselves that they don't have that in place. And then something happens, life happens,
and that's what sets,
and boom, that sets them back, sets them very, way back sometimes. And so having that in place is important. I'll skip here. The another one is retirement, but that's generally 20, 30 years in the future. And a lot of people don't think that way because they think in the now. But having an account that you're putting monies away for the long term and consistently putting money away for that is important. But then the big one is right in the middle. It's in between retirement 30 years from now, and it's in between the now for emergencies. It's 5 years from now. Do I have to pay off debt? Do I want to travel? Do I want to buy a house? Am I getting married? Things like that. I want to save for those things. So I want to put those monies in a certain account. Then say after 5 years, but before I retire, I want to have another account so that money is for, like, say, college tuition for my kids. Let's say I want to retire early. I don't want to work till 65 or 72. I want to quit at 55 and start doing something else. Well, you should have money saved aside for that because you can't pull monies from a traditional retirement account till you're 59 and a half, or you're going to get dinged with tax penalties. So having money set aside for that is important if that's important to you. You know what I mean? Or traveling or a second home. Now you start thinking like, wow, this person has it together, right? They've got all these assets. It's not necessarily always about real estate or healthy stock portfolios or things like that. It's just making sure your money's appropriated properly.
Start chipping away at it, right?
How you want to live from here into the future.
And I think that's the thing. I think for me, and I'm going to tell you, like, in the last 10 years is, you don't have to have everything, like all the ducks set in a row, because like waiting for that, like I need to have this, and this, and then I'll get kind of started. Kind of late bloomer here on that part, but I was like, I'm just going to start like one thing at a time. And then you start kind of, getting your safety net, right? Because to your point, but kind of going back even more like on with you, when did you decide and kind of what were your strengths and skill sets that, like, I'll give you an example. Like, was it you were great at math? Was it really because you just wanted to engage with people? Like, what were some of the drivers and skill sets, what we call foundational skills? If somebody really kind of want to do this, because it sounds like, it's really inspirational to hear you and just your approach and the purpose and the difference that you're making, touching and impacting lives is amazing, right? So how does somebody kind of get into that career?
I've been good at math. Well, I am good at math. That was something.
I am good right now.
I lost it. No, I didn't. No, but math was always a strength of mine back in school. But I think my greatest gift really is being able to talk to people, not being afraid. And public speaking for me, that's one of the biggest fears. I think there's more fear in public speaking than dying. I think it's a statistic that's out there. So. Right. So it's crazy. But I'm comfortable getting in front of a crowd and talking, and I've always have. So that allowed me to be able to jump into this industry. I followed my dad in the business back in 95. And I actually went to work at an insurance company for a few years to really get training within the insurance industry. Then I left and started my own financial firm back in 2004, and then I merged my practice with Strategic Wealth in 2009. So it's been a progress and changes as well as even going from more of a captive insurance company to then an independent holistic wealth management firm, and then helping build Strategic Wealth to where we are now. And we just opened up an office in Scottsdale in Arizona 2 years ago, right after the pandemic, right when everybody was crazy. We opened up an office over there, and that's been very good. And it's just having the tenacity of never giving up, not quitting, not being afraid, and just do it. Trust me, that to me is one of the best things, that you can do anything when you have that kind of attitude and belief. Being good at math and economics and things like that are great, but that shouldn't preclude you from saying like, well, I want to be an advisor.
Were you interested in that? Like, let's just say Bobby back in high school was like, that's cool. That's what I'm going to be doing.
Management is what I studied.
Okay.
And then I got a minor in finance, but management is in people. It's managing people in groups. And so to me, it was a natural being in that setting. And I found myself displaced from my employer. And I said, you know what? I look at my dad and say, why don't I do something like what he's doing? Because he's got all this freedom and does all this, he's always at all my events, for football and stuff. So I said, let me try that.
That's a good point.
That's huge. Yeah.
And so sure enough, that was like the best thing I ever did.
That's awesome. I feel Alma is about to come out with a solution, or because I see your light bulb like doing the little zap. Ding, ding, ding. and you're talking about youth. You're asking questions about what got them intrigued. Is there something that you're thinking about right now that you see a connection with?
We have we're going into the summer. There's going to be a lot of students that are coming out of high school, going out of college, and maybe are interested in this type of career. And maybe there's a way that we can help some of these individuals, or even adults, I'm not only youth, but where we can offer them some kind of work experience so they can kind of try this out.
I like it. And it's also male dominated. So we need to consider the potential of female impact on this, or bringing in some ladies of, what could we call it?
Well, there's a huge push, a need for women in finance. There's a big push in the insurance and the securities industry for more women to enter. And you're starting to see a lot more strength in numbers, because generally what we found in some of the studies within our industry is that women do like to work with other women. Not that men, it's a taboo, because, but there's sometimes more of a trust factor. And so within our firm, two of my partners, Monica Narvaez and Claudia de la Rosa, have a women in business specialty. That's what they do. Their focus is specifically for women.
Awesome.
And they've done so well because for whatever reason, that tends to be a soft point where women are like, I need someone to talk to, but I don't know if I necessarily trust. And that tends to be a strength. And it works for them. And their clients have been just really grown from that. It comes from women that have been divorced, women that have been widowed, and all of those areas. Like specifically, sometimes women were widowed, had never managed anything, none of the finances, totally in the dark. What do I do? And we've been able to then help them understand, start from scratch.
Wow.
Sometimes in their 50s, 60s, even 70s, and going, I have no idea what's going on.
But you know what? Candlelight, good credit to Candlelight, because she gave a great point. There's so many, women kind of do run the household a lot, right? I mean, maybe in a non-traditional sense sometimes, but a lot of the decisions are made by women. And so getting them involved in this financial and passing that on and having those conversations, true. Aside from the family, like everybody, right? Not just women, men, but if we can really empower women to get into this career, find those opportunities, empower other women, then you're really doing something really, really big.
We totally agree.
We can blow this up.
Candles. I know. Is that why you put blow my mind?
So Layla's my but we're actually going to play a little song as we close out the podcast. We are.
So Candles running production in the background. Okay. Alma's assistant production on the background.
Multitasking.
But I do remember, and on the topic of women, that wasn't there a recent statistic that women running the financials of businesses have way better outcomes?
There have been, yes, there have been notices of that, yes.
I'm pointing out an article. No. Don't give me that face.
No, they have. Absolutely.
Poking her under the table.
No, it's more the reason to encourage that balance. Not to say that boys are better or girls are better than boys. I'm just saying there are statistics that show that we're fully capable, if not could push the potential of it.
And then so you have to, the question is, then why aren't more women going into this field?
Ooh.
I have noticed. Well,
that's a good.
They are afraid, or we are afraid to
do that.
What do you think?
Is what I think.
A confidence thing.
The confidence.
Because
what I think.
To your point, the public speaking, right? The management, the people.
Well, everyone's different. One thing I've noticed, women have it difficult in that oftentimes they're managing the home, like you said, right? And that's true. So let's say that they're single parent home. So she's managing her kids, she's managing the household and working.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we all know this, right? There's a huge issue in that scenario. So if she finds herself in a place to where she has to go out, how can she manage a financial advising business and prospecting and going out meeting clients when she has all these duties at home to take care of her kids? So there's a huge time disparity there for them to really do the things that they need to do. For men, I think men sometimes have it pretty easy. Like, I'll give you an example. I'm married. My wife handles a lot of things for the kids. I'm out to be able to do what I need to do, and she works, but she handles a lot of that back at the house. And I'm so grateful, so thankful.
I'm so thankful that you see that.
Yes.
I'm so
yes.
Being ignored. My husband's like, targeting? I'm like, I have 6 birthday parties.
My wife takes care of a lot, and I thank her for that. So it's true. Now, when you get into a single parent home, it's hard. It's hard, but it can happen. They can be successful. You just have to pace yourself.
So, we tease Layla a lot about having a crystal ball and doing things, and
she's psychic.
No, really. Sometimes I'm like, what is going on here? But so one of the things that we had looked at, and we actually launched a program called Nailed It, and that was to skill women in home repairs, right? But their inspiration, I remember when we were having this conversation, a lot of it came from women who are in abusive relationships, right? And domestic survivors and things like that. And like, what can we empower them with so that they're less reliant? Second, we'll still do Nailed It, like version 2.
Financial.
But let's do a financial boot camp for some of these, So, and then, and that's just like a sliver of what we really need to do. But I think this is really...
It's in the works. It's in the works.
Well, I'd love to introduce my business partners, have Monica and Claudia even be on the show, because they could bring some extreme aspects to that.
Bring the Federal Reserve, bring them.
Some workshops at the...
We actually, and I have yet to announce formally, but we are planning a financial conference with Mija Yes You Can that introduces this, and I'd love to introduce the whole workshop situation into it, like as part of a call to action at the end of it. So we just have how many solutions just happened?
Something that I also kind of want to mention, because it's in the works, and this is a good opportunity for anybody who's listening to the podcast, and also some staff here listening, is we are launching a pilot with several partners, but I'll leave that up to you guys to come up with a catchy name. But for right now, it's the MasterCard Transformation Pilot. And in that, there's several components that we're looking at, but financial literacy, coaching, and readiness is integrated in all of that, along with mental health, digital literacy, awesome. A device, all of those things very holistically, because I think all of those key pieces, to your point, Bobby, are critical. You can't have one without the other, and they're all just as important.
The mental health thing is the first thing. And when it comes to getting women into the male-dominated industries, you touch on that. And that's like this imposter syndrome situation, the confidence level, the intimidation of just being in a room full of men and feeling that you're,
And we're approaching it as what we call the family centered employment approach, but tweaking it a little bit from what it is traditionally by adding these additional components. So, whether it's directly towards, single parent families, women, but or both. A combination of, sometimes you've got you've got youth living with their grandparents. So like all these different things are going to be going on, but I think there's so much opportunity. So we're going to need to do this again.
I would say that one of the biggest problems is people telling you, "Oh, you can't do that.
Oh,
yeah.
You can't do that.
That's
You'd
not for
fail.
you."
There's no way." And it's not always just hearing it from someone else. Sometimes it's yourself saying, "I can't do that."
It's your inner critic.
We have to eliminate that and say, "I can do that," and have faith that you can move forward. And when you finally break through, the key there is, well, where do I get training? Where do I get help? Who can help me? Raise your hand and ask. Ask questions.
Workforce comes in the back.
That's exactly right.
Exposure, right?
And I love that we're doing this pilot. I'm so excited about this MasterCard thing. And I actually just saw some of the notes that Karina provided about debt trends, especially in the more recent years. I'm blown up, blown away that consumers ended 2021 with record levels of debt. Secondly, those between ages 18 to 23, God, this youth population's getting hit so hard, had the most significant overall debt growth in the year 2020. So we have some serious debt coming in, and what can we foresee with that in the economy? What do you see happening there? I mean, that's a tough one, but
it is. And I think when it comes to youth, there was a report with Brookings that really it was a culmination of three big things. As for economic impact to youth, and when we call youth in the WIO language, is under age 24, 16 to 24. But those were the ones that were impacted the most in job loss and income loss and all of those things with COVID. So you've got that one factor. Then you've got the mental health issues that have completely exacerbated everything. And then the racial and social justice environments that they're, I mean, and these are young adults, literally adulting. And you've got these three huge, pandemics kind of happening all at once.
Yeah, this isn't real world.
There's a lot to uncover there.
This goes beyond that real world. Oh, welcome to the real. This is like World War III horrible. This is not real world what we went through. And I think on the bird's eye perspective, if we take a step back, is think about if they have this much debt and they're going to incur more, especially if they're not financially literate and they're not thinking about the compounding of interest, but and especially if they don't get the wages and you have this economy happening, they spend a majority of their lives paying off debt. They don't save enough for retirement. And then what happens to the economy then when they do get to the retirement age and they do realize they can't get out of bed and they can't work and there's nothing? What happens then?
So if I can just share with you, so the way they worded it was, the triple pandemic is what they're calling it. So the public health crisis itself, right? Mm-hmm. The economic collapse, and the impact directly to them, and the racial reckoning. But look at the statistic. Unemployment amongst young adults has always been a little bit higher than the traditional. Mm-hmm. So it was around 8.4. It jumped to 24.4 just for that age group. And now they're saying that 4 out of 10 youth are now going to be what they call opportunity youth.
Which are the ones that we need to that we reserve the majority of our funding to support, that we need to find. Yeah, we have another crisis looming from those three. Bobby, how are we going to fix it?
But chipping, we've got to chip away though, right?
With financial literacy.
The key really is just being able to provide access to
resources,
to information, and I think that if you pull the proper people who have the expertise mm-hmm. and make it available, then they'll have a place to seek it and to understand and start to learn, and then maybe even develop relationships to where, hey, I want to hire you, I want to be able to learn from you, guide me into decisions that are proper. So I think that's the key. It's really just making the information readily available so people can take it.
And for any employers out there, I just kind of want to give some more kudos to Bobby, because he's actually going to provide possibly 3 opportunities for work experience at his firm. So
That's
we're going
awesome.
We're going to be reaching out to some finance students and other things that they might need. Mm-hmm. This is just, imagine the impact of having that work experience with somebody like Mr. Blanco. So
the mentorship aspect.
Okay, Bobby Blanco.
Bobby from the blog. That's how I'm saved.
Mr. Blanco is my father.
Okay.
Bobby.
With Bobby.
And I think what we need to consider too, Alma, and just as we're bubbling up with this next force idea, is we need to make financial literacy cool, because that's our priority population given what they have come. Obviously, the people that are retiring now, Karina, you can talk a little bit about those statistics, but the youth is who's going to be hit really hard, and we need to make it cool. We can't say picture me rolling and expect them to enjoy or come to us, but we need to reach them. And that's the trick. How do we reach them?
So I think we kind of touched upon it earlier. These platforms, that's not the solution. And now we know, mm-hmm. Especially with some of the information that you provided. So it's important to let them know that. But if that's the initial hook, maybe that's where we lean in, but then we connect them with
financial
an actual advisor, right? To your point, are they certified? No, you know what I mean? So those are the things that they need to think about, because that could be the new fallout, and if they're banking on that being their way they're going to get, be okay, then it's not going to work.
Why don't we offer a webinar or even in-person seminars and just have invite the youth and those who are displaced or just to learn. Anybody that wants to learn, it doesn't have to be youth, but
Just
to learn
ongoing,
more.
like schedule them in.
Even
Right.
parents, o sea, even
Anybody.
parents,
Well,
for a
parents
youth,
even
yes.
more important because even if they don't know, they're the ones that have to teach the kids.
Exactly.
We've had
Pop-up
those though.
financial
We've had
sessions
those
in the
with
community.
with the chamber. We've done that.
No,
stuff.
but the pop-ups. Where
Oh.
we're going into the neighborhood.
I see.
Yes.
And now, you know what I mean?
love that.
You know, because it's also, if it's from 8 to 5, who's going to attend?
Yeah,
right?
that's
You know
it's
what
a
I mean?
hard
Like,
sell. It's a hard sell.
Yeah, like you got to make it accessible too.
I think in today's world with Zoom and being able to infiltrate webinars online, that's a great place to go as well. I mean, look, most kids, as you know, they don't leave their phone. It doesn't even leave their hand most of
True.
the day. So
I'm
they
looking
can
at the
access it
word
pretty quickly.
infiltrate,
So.
though. What I'm like, are we saying that are we saying what I think we're saying? Just kidding now. No, but yeah, no, definitely using the technology as a way to connect.
Well,
right?
you
Making it
mentioned
easier.
4 out of 10 are going to be opportunity. Could we pay them to watch these financial literacy?
Your mom make money.
No, and once we get the youth, then we get them to kind of advocate and share the information with their parents or
A referral
grandparents, or
program.
you know what I mean. And
We pay them to bring more people to get financially literate.
that's a little bit of the concept of next force, right?
That's for next time, Mama.
Right.
Calm down. That's our next episode. A few more. But I love where all of this is going, and I love the solutions that we've already I've tallied at least 5. But before we close, I do want to talk about this economic impact when it comes to retirement. I'm not talking about future economic impact. I'm talking about what we're dealing with in terms of how many adults are currently not prepared to retire. And Karina, can you fill us in a little bit on what you found?
Yes. I was looking census data and indicates that 49% of the adults ages 55 to 66 who are not retired had no personal retirement savings. There is another research from Natiki's Global Retirement Index. It says that 59% of the Americans said that they accept that they will have to keep working longer, while 36% now believe that they will never have enough money to be able to retire. So you have
dire.
this big percentage of people like me, or like I need to start like making a budget. Like in reality, I have a financial advisor and say I need to know how much in your Social Security you have. All these, every case is different because I needed to have a person who is that I'm going to trust, and I'm trusting, and then because I wanted to retire not at 70 years old. That's why we need to plan at the earliest stages. In my case, I'm almost 50, but I recommend to start doing it before.
Most people don't know what they don't know. And I think oftentimes there's not a platform where they can see everything in one place. So it's always good to be able to kind of look at all of your income and investments and even your expenses in a financial plan. And so now financial planning becomes very important because it ties in everything that you're doing, and then you project it into the future along with your expenses, when you want to retire, when Social Security kicks in, and when should you take it early, later, things like that, so that you can project what that would look like. And again, who offers financial plans? So you need somebody who's licensed and who has the experience and is going to help you see the big picture and being able to see everything that you're looking for. Now, that's the key.
Don't go to TikTok for it.
I know, for sure. But Bobby, question, just to kind of lighten up a dire situation, what is the worst case scenario that has come to you that flipped into something very, very...
A success story.
Success story that retirement was possible, debt payoff was possible. I don't know. Can you think of anyone that may have benefited from this at a late start?
Oh yeah. I mean,
What's the best case?
well, I've had several of those,
Good.
without pinpointing anything specific. Just they came to me saying, well, you know what? I had a couple that were displaced from their employer, and they're like, well, I've got some money saved in the retirement plan. I've just been putting money into it, and I don't really know how much or what's that going to provide for me in the future, and I might be able to still find a job. Just that one in particular, they didn't even realize that they had saved over $1 million in their retirement plan.
Oh my God.
It's like winning your own lottery.
Okay, so they're right there. They're going, well, is that enough? Is that, am I going to be okay? And I'm like, well, let's take a look. Before I say yes, let's take a look at your expenses. Well, they live very modestly. They're not high flying it in Beverly Hills every weekend. They're living it just comfortable, which just off of that, the income that their own money can now generate for them is plenty, along with Social Security that they'll have, and they don't have an issue.
Have you ever had a situation where somebody did not have any kind of formal pension plan, 401k, but they wanted to start?
So yes, and now typically we have had people come to us and didn't have adequate amounts, and they were nearing retirement. And yes, the fact is that you're going to probably have to work longer. It's or really cut back on your expenses. You can and focus on debt reduction.
And you help them kind of walk through that, like what can you cut back, and what do you?
Because it's all about budgeting. It's all about understanding the income and outflow of money. And once they have a handle of that understanding, that's really easy to say, do I really need this or not? Does that Netflix account really that important? Unfortunately, nowadays, you can't live without it, right?
It is.
So unfortunately, but those are the things that you have to ask yourself.
Like what?
There's more consciousness.
Yeah.
You're more conscious of what you do. Yeah. I know that when I'm better about looking at my budget more regularly, I'm a lot more aware of, okay, no, you don't need to go.
Where it's going.
And sometimes you need somebody to open your eyes, like telling you, do you really need like the financial advisor? You have all these expenses. Or let's check what exactly you need.
And not a psychic.
And the other side is like you kind of need that tough love. I hate to say it, but who in your inner circle would really tell you when it comes to money, you're going to make it or not? So you need that disinterested third party on the outside to be able to give you the bad news and say,
you know what? You need that handbag, those shoes, those whatever, right? Like, is it absolutely critical?
I've had people not do business with me because I told them the truth, and they didn't want to hear the truth. They wanted to hear their truth, and so they went to find their truth, which they didn't really need to talk to anybody. They just needed to do their own thing, but that wasn't going to work. Sometimes the truth hurts, and you really have to deal with it.
And you can change it. Also, you can
Of course you can change it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. It's never like you ask, and then you change it, and then you can have a better life.
It might not be pleasant, but you can get there. It just depends on how serious you are. I've had a lot of people say, well, my kids will take care of me. I'm like, well, good luck.
Yeah.
Because nowadays, they'll stick you in a home. It wasn't like 50 years ago when the kids really did take care of their parents. But now a lot of the youth they unfortunately, those put parents in a nursing home and off they go. And there's a high rate of that going on, and it's not.
And I mean, and I definitely, I wouldn't want to do that to I don't want, my kids to go through that.
Burden.
You know what I mean?
Well, I don't want to go into a home unless I want to go.
Yeah, and I don't want to go into a home either.
I make the decision if I want to go.
You know what I mean? But I think it's important. It's surprising to hear that some parents are counting on that, because that's putting the hardship back on your kids. You know what I mean, as well. So it's tough.
It's not easy. Financial planning, financial independence is not an easy topic. It hurts oftentimes. A lot of people find a lot of stress in it, and thus they say, you know what, I don't want to talk about it. It's that fight or flight scenario, and they don't want to even talk about it, so they just run.
You have to be vulnerable, right, to admit what you're doing.
That's oftentimes, I've heard studies say that going to see a financial advisor can often be as stressful as going to see your physician from a health issue.
Financial trauma, yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. So it can be as issue in that scenario. So, we like to try and keep things simple and help people relax about those types of things. And I think the key there has always just been helping them understand, but that there are options and there are ways that you can improve. You can make changes, and it doesn't have to be that bad. You can make it work.
Very good. There's so much. I feel like we barely got to scratch the surface. We're going to have to have a part two.
Yeah, for sure. More than ever, we know that how critical it is. So it's not like, it's a luxury, to have this kind of advice or, have financial literacy or, acumen. It's going to be just as critical as it's a basic need. now.
A lot of times, like you said earlier, hiring a financial advisor is like, well, I need help with my yacht. And, right?
Yeah. Like, you don't
Which
think
one
of
should
it.
I buy? So,
Best interest rate.
But no, financial planning, really from a fundamental perspective starts early on. So you start now.
Yeah.
And now is whatever age you are. It's never too late.
Yes.
I think that's important. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we covered a lot. We're at an hour. So thank you,
Wow.
Bobby, so much. That flew by. We're definitely have to have you back. We'll
Thank
bring
you.
your partners. Alma has some ideas. We have some ideas. We need a part 2, maybe even a part 3 for this.
That would be wonderful.
Money
Thank you all
talks.
for having me. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
so
Thank
much.
you.
We definitely have more to unpack with this topic, and you will be hearing more from expert guests in the future. What would you like to hear more of, or less of, when it comes to financial literacy? Always eager to hear from you. Find us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, and vent with us. Till next month, thanks for listening.